fallout between the two main members of the Government of National Unity seems to deepen. A new survey by the Brenthouse Foundation has found that a majority of the participants were happy with the Government of National Unity. Let's talk about the methodology, the sampling and the outcomes expressed in the survey. We'll do this with the Research Director at the Brenthouse Foundation, Ray Hartley. Ray, good morning to you. As always, thanks for your time. Appreciate it and welcome. It is an interesting survey, and before we get to the results, which everyone is talking about, let's just talk about the goal of the survey first. What were you hoping to understand?
Yeah, so we did a series of surveys ahead of the national election last year, and this is the first of a series of surveys ahead of the municipal elections, which would take place next year, possibly the year after. So we also included questions in that survey on the GNU. It was very topical at the time, with a lot of ructions going on between the ANC and the DA. And so we got an interesting result on the GNU.
I mean, as a foundation, I mean, you know, in particular, what was your interest in finding out this particular piece of information or pieces of information?
Well, I think a lot of hot air gets blown around, and a lot of people are, you know, prone to making rapid-fire statements on social media and so on. It's much better to get some kind of primary research done so that you understand what people actually think on the ground. And that's exactly what we seek to do with these surveys.
All right, let's talk about the target audience array and how they were selected.
Yeah, so it's a representative sample. It's a large sample, more than double what we used in the national election surveys, which were very accurate. This one is larger because we wanted a substantial number of people in the metros, so that we could measure metro voter choices more closely. So it was in excess of 3,600 interviews, 20-minute interviews, according to a question sheet. And yeah, we're quite happy with the methodology.
All right, so let's get to some of the findings then, Ray. The standout finding that 57% of voters believe the GNU is performing well. 60% say it is performing better than the previous ANC-only government, and seems to favor this coalition staying in place. Talk to us about why this is important. I mean, I think in part, as you say, it's to kind of, you know, create some certainty and bring some statistical evidence to where South Africans stand in reality on the issue of the GNU, rather than sentiments expressed on social media. So just talk to us about the impact and importance of this finding.
Yeah, I think it's significant. I mean, it speaks to a similar finding that we had ahead of the national election, and essentially means that South Africans want their leaders to work together. They want them to get together. The country's problems are massive. They need resources, they need attention, and there is this impetus to actually push aside the petty politics, get together, work together. I do think the positive outcome for the GNU is probably measured against the previous government. There's definitely been an uptick in government performance in opposition-held portfolios, but also in ANC portfolios since the formation of the GNU. So if you look at somebody like the police minister, he's rated very favorably. The Home Affairs minister rated favorably, basic education and so on. So there's definitely been an improvement in the public perception of government getting things done. Certainly Home Affairs, coming off a very poor public opinion prior to the GNU, is now rated amongst the most favorable government departments.
And I think that's interesting because in response to the question or the result findings, and how would you say the following government departments have performed since the elections, you've mentioned some of those. 5 opposition-run ministries are rated higher than the presidency.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, it is quite indicative, again, of that sort of surge of positivity that's come to government, itself. I think that there is definitely a sense that government is getting more done. And those opposition portfolios, I think the impetus for the opposition to prove itself, to show, it's an opportunity for them to demonstrate some sort of governance ability. They've really driven their ministers very hard, and, you see the result.
The study, Ray, also finds that a voluntary exit or expulsion from the GNU is unlikely to be looked upon favorably by voters. So this signals that they still believe that, for better or worse, this GNU should stay in place.
Yeah, I think that's partly to do with the alternatives. I think voters don't like the more radical populist parties. So if you look at party support since the election, it's gone up for the ANC, it's gone up for the DA, and it's gone down for MK Party and the EFF, who are sort of very much against the GNU. So I think there is definitely a kind of momentum towards this particular coalition, which is a broad coalition. And remember, it includes the IFP and a bunch of other parties as well.
I want to go back, as you said, it was written in the survey that the survey was done between the 24th of February and the 11th of March, before, the sort of deep ructions over VAT between the DA and the ANC. We see the DA now filing that court case challenging the legality of the budget process, and they want to block the implementation of the increase. So by all accounts, widening this rift in the fragile ruling coalition, the National Assembly narrowly passing that budget's fiscal framework and revenue proposals last week, as the ANC went outside, got support from smaller parties outside the coalition. Do you think the picture might be different now if you ask the same cohort the questions around the GNU?
I think possibly. I don't think by much, because I think that, again, the impetus is the desire to see these parties work together is very strong. And I think the initial round of budget mishaps that already occurred when this survey was in the field. It was in the field from late February through to about 11 March. So, the session that was cancelled and so on. So some of that sentiment is already in there.
All right. Well, Ray, it's fascinating. I'm just going to encourage our viewers to go and have a look at the results of the survey. As you say, and I was hoping to talk more about what it says in the run-up to local government elections, but we're out of time. There's some interesting insights in this. I'll encourage our viewers to go then and have a look at the survey results in its entirety. But thank you for stopping by.